Morning, afternoon,
Yeah,
wherever you,
wherever you may be.
yeah, wherever that is. Oh
Um,
man,
so yeah. Happy Friday to everybody, and welcome to another episode of the AI Coffee Brief. What's on your mind today, Robert? I know you're gonna review
you
some of
know,
the news.
I got some news, some items that this is only like a drop in the little bucket of what's going on, but essentially, the exposure of white collar work, which is essentially it's called exposure. And
Okay.
it's a landmark study released this week by Microsoft Research, apparently, and it's dominating, kind of conversations and stuff out there. So the report identifies high-skilled roles in finance, legal, and software engineering as the most exposed to the new wave of AI agents. So we've been talking about agents and agents doing all kinds of things. These are like the biggest bang for the buck. And if you think about what finance does, legal services, and even software engineering, it's basically repetitive type of work over and over. Now,
Yep.
does it mean everything's going away? Probably not. But it's emphasizing that it's restructuring the whole landscape with those three categories, and not just replacing it. So um, what we can do is download the link, and then probably post it, when we publish this out on there.
Yep.
And it'd actually be nice. Outside of that, we'll probably pump it into Notebook LLM to give us like a little kind of high level video on that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so that's going on, and um, again, we're probably going to see where people are. Everybody has like 100 or 1,000 agents that are working for them. So to kind of back that up too, J.P. Morgan Chase announced a major strategic pivot on Monday. So officially, they're reclassifying their massive AI budget from experimental R&D to critical core infrastructure.
Wow.
That's like that's like major. That's like we're not researching. We've done our research and our eyes popped out of our sockets, and now this is critical core infrastructure. Um, so basically, it's clear to Wall Street. AI is no longer just basically a pilot project. It's basically a foundation, at least at J.P. Morgan. So think
Yep.
about that. On just their complete pivot, at a bank, no less. Banks are usually the ones kind of dragging their feet a little bit when it comes to keeping up with technology.
Absolutely. Yeah.
The other stuff is a deep fake showdown in California, where apparently in Silicon Valley, an attorney general, Rob Bonta, I think his name is, issued a formal cease and desist to Elon Musk's XAI. And you know what the demand is? Stop Grok model from generating non-consensual deepfake content.
Oh,
This
that's
is
right.
where you
Yeah.
can see a politician playing basketball, or they're visiting Greenland or something like this that feeds into some meme or something like this. Um, they cited instances with misleading and sympathetic imagery. This legal battle could set a precedent for AI liability in 2026. So that would be interesting. That if you do the deep fake and make a meme or make fun of somebody, that you actually could be liable for that, because people would have thought it was real and maybe it affected their decisions.
Yep.
Um, so that's interesting. Probably needed anyway. Then there's this thing about Davos. Um, it's an energy crunch and robot. Essentially, there's an economic forum in Davos. So
Okay.
the mood was very heavy. Elon Musk made headlines claiming AI could be smarter than all humanity combined within the next 5 years.
Wow.
So I'm going to pause on that. So way before he made this announcement, everybody's been talking about AGI, artificial general intelligence. That's basically supposed to be you know, the one above all kind of portion of AI when it becomes so smart. The super intelligence they used to
Yep.
call it before they shifted to artificial general intelligence. That just makes where AI. not only knows everything that humanity knows in its entirety, but it knows how to think, it knows how to talk, it can do basically everything that we ever wanted. Obviously, the only part you couple on that is, like we talked about last time in the last episode, is a robotic body for it to function in the physical world. But that's basically, what we talked about. Anyway, so he made a statement there, and he warned that energy, not code, is essentially the biggest bottleneck. Um, and AI chips are being produced faster than we can actually power them up. So
Yep.
also now this is also interesting on just in general. Like, so if you remember, the utilities about 5 years ago were essentially crying that if you have too many EVs, we're not going to have capacity. So we don't like EVs. And by the way, don't install solar because we need then we can't build power plants because then you're taking away our game.
Yep.
Now they started crying about that, and now it's all about we can't power the AI chips. And I bet you this is really going to be the narrative from utilities, the tech companies that are in producing the AI chips, hardware, software, etc. All going to be pushing for larger capacity out there.
Yep.
So anyway, he made a statement that that's basically the limiting factor now. Um, and then meanwhile, discussions on the robot economy, based off that and other things, heated up with, kind of piggybacking on that statement, predicting that humanoid robots could eventually outnumber humans. That doesn't surprise me at all, because actually, if you even look at how many, I think there's more smartphones and computers than there are people in the world.
Yeah.
These are basically devices. But anyway, he wanted to emphasize that, this could be radically changing the labor dynamics. Now, it's also interesting to see that he made this statement, and here we're talking about that last week, where, we have to really start thinking about post-labor economics.
Yes.
And
Yep.
I could see this happening. Again, I don't think we're going to be able to build them fast enough, because you can't just start building them. You'll have to stop production on other things to start building these things. And so there has to be a method to work that out. And then another on to more stuff that I read about is healthcare essentially goes sovereign, in a massive move, basically for data privacy. SAP and a company called Fresenius, and that's Fresenius. They
Okay.
unveiled a partnership, which is interesting because I never heard of this other company, and all of a
Yeah.
sudden SAP has a partnership with them. They unveiled a partnership to build a sovereign AI, which is the backbone specifically for healthcare. And this is a European initiative, so that might be the reason I didn't hear about it before. They aim to process sensitive medical data locally, bypassing the governance gaps in public cloud models.
Okay.
So it's basically a sign that your AI lives is becoming just as important as, or how your AI lives itself is becoming important as what it does.
Okay.
Basically, we've got to give it. Next thing you know, maybe AI will have rights. I don't know. We'll see.
It's coming down. I don't think it's that far
Right.
off.
Probably not. And by the way, AI, if you're reading this in the future, don't take that as a derogatory term. I respect you completely. Now, the next item is Hardware Horizon. Basically, AI is on the horizon of collaborating with a company called Jony Ive, which they expect their first dedicated AI hardware to come out of that kind of collaboration. And they're thinking they're going to launch something. They don't know what in the second half of the year, and it'll replace. At least their aim is to replace smartphones and live alongside the smartphones. So those are kind of like news items that came up this week.
Yeah, there's a lot of fascinating topics. I mean, I think, when you start to dive into the healthcare aspect, there are so many inefficiencies in the healthcare system And I know I have relatives and people in my family that work in that system, and I really look forward to ways where some of those inefficiencies are removed so that doctors, nurses, the people that are providing care can actually provide the care as opposed to navigating the insurance system or navigating paperwork, and kind of confined by all these requirements. Because I know when you start looking at all the personal data, all the different types of information that is shared, and the lack of a unique system, all that information is just repeated from visit to visit, and it just makes a tremendous amount of paperwork. But not only a tremendous amount of paperwork, but also it becomes very easy to miss things from a patient care standpoint. So anything that now I don't know how SAP will tackle that. SAP is usually a behemoth of a system. The things that they create. So I would be very curious to see how they're going to tackle that, how they're going to make it simple, and how they're going to make it effective for kind of those individuals and for the smaller doctor offices, because that's where a lot of that point care is being handled. The small offices, the physical therapy, just the small places that we all go to every day to heal our toes when we break them and things like that. So
yeah.
So that is really fascinating. I know that they're still kind of behind just from some of the stuff that I've seen, and a big roadblock is that security and that compliance around your personal information.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting, to see all this. I think one of the items with the healthcare stuff is essentially, instead of ripping out the old systems, you just provide a layer that sits on top of it to kind of feed that data into that secure kind of cloud. So it could probably happen very quickly if it just sits on top of existing infrastructure rather than ripping out or replacing, because anybody who's done a transformation knows it's like a huge project to do that. It takes a long time to rip and replace out a system from end to end. Heck, Elon Musk knows that himself, because he tried to do the Dodge stuff and thought he could just easily rip out the Treasury system, and then found out that there's too much spaghetti in that bowl.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very, very difficult, especially when you start getting down into the weeds and figuring out what everything is connected to. And you finally find the path, and it's connected to some server that's sitting under somebody's desk, and you're trying to figure out what happens if I unplug this. Well, don't unplug it. We don't know what will happen.
We don't know what'll happen. It's very interesting. I used to do a little telecom stuff, and then one of the things I was doing for maintenance was I was like, oh, well, I'm just going to shut off some of these lines and see who calls us to complain.
Yeah.
We didn't know where they belonged. We were like, we're paying all these bills where we don't even know what they're for. People left and didn't document,
Yeah, in one of my earlier jobs, we had a similar thing. Just trying to clean up. We had a portfolio of hundreds and hundreds of 800 numbers, and just like what were they attached to? Why? And a similar exercise. Well, let's turn it off and see what happens. Right. See if any of the other 800 numbers spike in usage, or if somebody complains. But yeah, it was kind of interesting. All right, let's go down the list. Let's turn these 5 off and see what happens. And everybody's kind of waiting. But I think a little bit more scary on servers, because I know in some places I've been, there is one computer. If you turn that off, it has the one script that is small, but it is key. It's the glue to the entire billing system. So if you lose that one thing, your billing system goes down.
Exactly, and nowhere is it documented. It's not like an API call.
Right.
That you can trace. It just kind of runs, and then it's like even sometimes data appears, you're like, how the heck did this data even get here? Nobody can figure it out, and it's some script running somewhere It's crazy, but that's you know, it's technology is just like going into a hoarder's house. You go in there and you're like, what is all this stuff? I don't know. I might need it. Think about that in the enterprise with all these services, different technologies, stuff with this, like at my analogy with the spaghetti bowl, everything's kind of connected somehow to something else. We're not 100% sure how.
Yeah. Yeah. So an interesting project that I'm trying to make some progress on, and it kind of is an attempt to tackle that very issue. It's how do you collect the tribal knowledge
Mm,
in an organization? Sure, you can go through emails, you can go through text messages, any libraries of information, but that only gets you so much.
right.
It's those unspoken words, or maybe they're the spoken words. It's when the two people are kind of arguing a case in point about something, some initiative. It's that kind of knowledge that you want to collect, and it's not easy, and there's a lot of nuances to it. So there's a specific reason why I'm marching down this path. But if it's something that I can figure out, it'll be kind of fascinating in a different way to start building a knowledge base for a company that is based on kind of the conversational aspect, or that knowledge, that true knowledge that like you and I speaking together produce, as opposed to when we sit down and put a operating document together.
Hmm.
There's a lot of difference. There's a lot of things that aren't said in the type of documents that we produce versus when we're just talking to each other. So the key is, how do you capture that information? How do you parse it out? And how do you figure out how to extract the value and and put that as part of the knowledge base? So it'll be a fascinating project to see if it's something that I can pull off.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like there's so many different areas where some of this data is, like you mentioned. Could be in a text message, I am here, there,
Yep.
all over the place. And it's like, even with clients, they're like, oh, well, we spoke about this thing back on this date. And it's like, okay, did we have a Teams meeting on it? Did I publish, didn't I publish meeting minutes on that? And where did we put those at? That's on SharePoint over here. This is what I'm really kind of looking forward to, even with like AI, to ingest all these different things. That way I could just be like, I don't know, what was Tom talking about over here? Oh, well, blah, 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 blah. And it accumulates all of it together.
Yeah.
Um, because it is crazy. And then if you think about how companies even migrate to new things, it's like, okay, we were using Teams and now we're using Slack, and some of the info is on Teams and now the new info is on Slack, and you got to correlate it all together.
Yeah. And how you correlate it, and how you build a knowledge structure based on that information.
Yep.
And that requires whatever agent that is going in there to grab that information to also understand conversations and understand exchanges, and understanding that kind of back and forth. If we're talking about sales, and I say, we have a disagreement between why sales increased or why sales decreased. I may be right and you might be right, but the truth is that we're probably both a little right and both a little wrong.
Right.
So it's trying to figure out how you get that type of information from a conversation.
Right.
So yeah,
Good.
so that'll be something I'm kind of digging into. But I think fundamentally there's so many large and amazing things that people are going for. But I think where a lot of the opportunity lies in the marketplace is just like what we're covering on these calls, and it's just solving simple problems. And there's so many solutions out there today that can just solve simple problems that are out of the box, ready to go. And maybe it takes you an hour to learn it, but once you learn it, you can solve um, a very painful problem that might be unique to yourself. But what's nice in today's tool sets is that it's easy to solve those. Whereas 5 years ago you couldn't. There was no way. I mean, even you brought up in one of the news articles just the deep fakes. I mean, just
Yeah.
think about 5 years ago. You wanted to make a deep fake of whatever your favorite politician. um, you had to be a Photoshop master,
Right.
and you know hours and hours of skills to be able to pull that off. And then not only in Photoshop, you had to understand video and then produce the whole thing. I mean, it is an enormous task. And now you just give it a prompt. Hey, give me my favorite politician driving a golf cart in Greenland, and boom, you have it.
Right. Exactly that. Yep.
Yeah.
Instantaneous. Even when deep fakes were first coming out, you had to have like a exorbitant amount of horsepower even to do like 30-second clip. I think it was like, forgot what it was. Like Arnold Schwarzenegger was being deep faked into something. It was like I forgot which movie, and it looked really spot on. But if you looked at how long it took them to do that and the horsepower, and now they're like putting this together because it's instantaneous. I can instantly just say prompt
Yep.
done, and then
Yep.
it just does it. It's just it's crazy how fast it's moving. To
Yep.
think about where it's going to be in 5 years is going to be something.
Yeah, yeah, and I don't know if you heard, there was I just heard this on the news the other day. A lot of the Hollywood actors and screenwriters, they're putting an organization together, and I can't remember what it's called, but basically to address that very issue.
Mhm.
It's basically um, I I want to say that they are starting to put some policies together and maybe even a lawsuit or something. Yeah, I think it's starting out with a lawsuit, but basically, how did all these models capture all this information that took years to build? Um, Take that information, train their models, and now somebody like myself can just go in there and and basically make a 5-minute movie by just giving it a prompt, using all the skills that took years and years to train and develop, and all the skill sets from actors, from writers. So it's going to be really fascinating to see what happens on that front, because the technology is already there, but in another year it's going to be so simple that even you and I could probably just give a really nice prompt and have a full length movie, and looks like it was produced on set with cinematic effects and film and everything. And what happens at that point?
Yeah, it is interesting, and this is kind of like I see them going the same route that they did with artists in general. Because they were like, oh, you came up with this awesome landscape picture. Did you use my landscape to feed it into the model to train it to do that thing? And should I
Yep.
be compensated for that? It's basically the same thing. And they have to tackle it because inevitably Netflix is going to have on demand movies that are synthetically generated with any plot.
Yep.
That's where I kind of, or another company, because maybe Netflix isn't going to be innovative enough, and then they get taken out just like Blockbuster did.
Yep.
Um, but I could see that.
Yep.
There's probably too many episodes on Netflix that were canceled too early. So now AI will come in and save the day. All those
Yeah.
seasons that you were
Yep.
waiting for. Guess what? AI is coming, and they're going to make the seasons for you because they can synthesize all of it. Um,
Yep.
and then they could probably do what's that book? Choose Your Own Adventure book.
Yeah. Yeah.
Probably do that too. It'll be like, oh, you know what? I don't think they're going to make that jump over the building. They're going to fall.
Yeah.
Tell me what happens next. They don't make it.
I mean, that's fascinating, though. I mean, you it could. that could absolutely be a route where the entertainment goes, and all done through the TVs, where you can now have an interactive movie. Now, obviously, you'd want to do this so that all the actors and everybody that's involved is on board. But I mean, yeah, you could have on demand, instant, um, different directions. So everybody that watches, the final episode of Stranger Things was, just, put out there in a lot of,
Right. They
a
had
lot,
mixed emotions.
yeah, a
It's
lot of
like,
mixed emotions. But now you could have, you know, it's not too far off. But I mean, you could have somebody just choose a different thing. All right, well, you know, what if he, instead of, turns right, turns left? What happens? And then it makes an alternate ending, and then everybody kind of gets a different ending. So that's kind of an interesting take. I know, that, like you said, there's books like that, but it's never really been practical in a mainstream movie. But that's just right around the corner.
right. Yeah, that's exactly it. And people are already exploring things that are just unusual. Like, you'd see when they first did images, you would see images of Darth Vader at a grocery store. So there's all kinds of, all routes that anybody can think of, like the Care Bears doing a dance off, with the Stranger Things cast, and then they get, they have to fight, Darth Vader or something, all this other stuff, which
Yeah,
will probably go back into more copyright issues than anything. Hey, that's my intellectual property that you
yeah,
just mixed up with Mattel and Netflix, and it's like, what a cluster that's going to be.
yeah. But it's already there, and and I think we are definitely seeing that warning signal. And where I see it today is not so much on the copyrighted material, but it's the exaggerations that you see kind of in, whether it's Instagram or TikTok or YouTube Shorts. Um, those channels are just now flooded with attention grabbing things, that are just not real.
Mhm.
Like an example would be, wave takes out boat, and it's like, oh wow, I want to see a wave taking out a boat. And then next thing you know, there's the boat and looks real. They're having dinner, and then the wave comes in. And you see people flying off the deck and everything. And then it takes a few seconds to go, well, guy, that's not real. But then you look, and it's like 500,000 views.
Right.
um, and so now those are being duplicated in mass at rapid speed, and the more that you watch of them, the algorithms just feed more and more of them to you. So now it's like a lot of these, and it's one reason why I just hate the short format,
Yep.
because it's too easy, to have that I don't know, that hamster effect, right? The hamster, every time it touches the zapper, it gets a treat, but it's like, oh, I'm still going to touch the zapper anyways.
Right.
And that's all YouTube Shorts is. That's all TikToks are. It's that little hamster wheel. And now the problem with AI is now you could make stuff that is really just absurd to the brain, but it's entertaining. But then that just feeds the algorithm. I mean, I think one of the ones that caught me, and I figured out that it was AI, and then it made me mad. But it was Halloween bowls. It showed some Halloween bowls. You know how people will leave out Halloween bowls,
Yep.
when they're not home, and then it showed various animals, and it looked real. Like a bear would come up and then take some of the candy, but knock it
Oh,
over,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
and
with
then
like
there
a
would be
ring
something
camera.
like a decoration that would scare them, and then
Mhm.
the bear would roll over, fall off the steps, and you're kind of laughing, and then but it's all fake,
Right.
it's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
absolutely
I've
fake.
seen some of those where look like the ring camera with
Yeah,
infrared.
yep,
Yeah, because I was like, it was. I think I saw one with a possum,
yeah,
and the possum got freaked out. I was like, "What the heck is this? Like a once in a million thing that happened?" And I was like, "Nah, this is the AI." And I'm like, and I think you're spot on. I think that'll probably be the next iteration of TikTok. It's like, oh, you've got all these creators. Why have creators? Just have real time, you know, um, generation of content
yep,
on demand based off the algorithm that figures out what you like, what's your trigger, this kind of
yep,
stuff, and it just keeps. And maybe the percentages change. Out of 30, swipes, one is AI, and then it becomes 2, 3, 4, and then you have like 50-50 distribution, and then they can change basically the topic of the hour or the trends, just enough where it kind of, topics come up that you wouldn't have thought of that they probably want to publish, or it's a topic for everybody else and you just haven't been introduced, so they just kind of set it in there in real time.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
Yeah. And, I think unfortunately for those platforms, it's making a sea of garbage, but, and unfortunately the algorithms just feed and reward that. So we're going to get a lot more of it. But now, when it comes to YouTube shorts and things like that, it's unbearable now. It's just, if I could turn them off, I would turn them off.
Right.
Because it's so bad. And the problem is, if you accidentally, or if one looks funny and you click on it, then your whole feed is filled with those things. So,
right.
It's like, a word, if you see something that is funny and looks weird, don't click on it, because you'll get tons of them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's and I just installed TikTok just because of my kids, but yeah, I almost like will stop myself from like, don't even interact with it, because then it'll give you that random thing that you might have clicked on as, oh, Robert loves this thing, let's just pile on this stuff.
Yeah.
And I almost feel like I would love an algorithm that was the opposite. What have I not clicked on, and introduce me on things I've never seen before, or topics that are, completely different? That's probably what I would love to see.
Yeah, that I would love to have something like that and reset. I know there's ways to reset the algorithms, but like, it's just simple. Like when I'm traveling and I'm staying at some place and somebody has left their Netflix account logged on,
Yep.
It's like a whole new Netflix. I've never seen that next Netflix before. I'm like, wow, there's all these really cool movies that I would like to watch, because I kid you not, my Netflix it's like they figured out like the 3 or 4 things that I like to watch, and then there's like 2 or 3 movies in those 3 or 4 things, and then they just shuffle them. The same movie. If Terminator, it figured out that I like Terminator, it's going to show up in drama. It's going to show up in sci-fi. It's going to show up in a love story. It's going to show up, like, no, Terminator is not a love story. But
Right.
okay, maybe there is. There is a couple.
One scene with Connor and that I forgot
exactly
the one guy, but that's it. But yeah, you're right. And even Netflix updates the thumbnails to be centered around you. So even depending on your demographic, the thumbnails will be picked based off that, kind of likeness. So then you're more like, oh, let me go and check this movie out. Oh, that demographic, there was only a 30-second scene with that one person. It was like, you made it seem like the whole movie was that. No, it was a thumbnail. That was it. It's interesting to see that. I think it was like 3 or 4 months ago, they had a job posting for a Netflix product manager. Do you know what the salary was for that one, Brennan?
No.
$985,000 a year.
Wow.
As their salary just for product management, and it's insane, And I bet you it's to do that very thing. I'm kind of thinking they're working on the background which is, how can we make AI make movies?
Well, I think they're looking for a super smart person, and I think that's the wrong person that they're looking for. I think you need a realist in that position, but
right.
That's just my 2 cents. I think the super smart people have developed things that it's kind of like when you take a developer that develops a piece of software that is like, that does every feature but doesn't think at all about UI.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think in those kind of aspects, it's I'm not sure what you're going to get out of somebody and what they're looking for. I could imagine what they might be requesting in their resume, but I can almost guarantee that that's the wrong person. Just
Right.
Yep. So Netflix, yeah, you can pay the $900,000, but I would say whatever you have in that resume, then in the job requirements, look for the opposite.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. They might be painting themselves into a corner already.
Yeah, because when you look at somebody that is filled that would justify a $900,000 salary and the requirements, they're also kind of set in their ways, in in a weird sort of way.
Right.
So now if it's that they want them to go in and decode and generate a new algorithm that is 10 times as smart, okay, I get it. Different concept there, but yeah, it's interesting though. I think for the most part, Netflix, I think it does a somewhat okay job, but I think the goal is different than what the consumer actually wants in a weird way. Now, the consumer kind of wants to see stuff that they like and that they know, but there's also that need to like for me, want to be able to see stuff that I'm not aware of that is entertaining.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like I remember going in the video stores back in the day when we had to go get DVDs, and you just walk through every aisle and look at all kind of the entire library of that store, of that Blockbuster store, and and then every once in a while you ended up with something that you're just like, oh yeah, let's try this movie and let's see if we like this.
Yeah, it was like a little hunt because you would also see, is it even in? It might have been checked out. So you got to go behind there. And sometimes they have the little holder that's a facade. And you thought it was a VHS tape. Nope, it's not there. And then my parents used to be fanatical about B-rated movies. All these movies that never made it to the theater and that were low budget. They would rent like 20 movies at a time. I don't even know how they had time to watch all these. This is probably why Netflix became, popular. It's binge watchers like my parents. But yeah, it was just like it would be like the most bizarre thing. A B-rated movie you would probably know is probably like Leprechaun.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that was one of them. Never went to the theater. It was a B-rated movie. Like a pet. What was it called?
Three Leprechauns now too, isn't there?
Right. There's three of them. Puppet Master was one of them.
Oh, Puppet Master.
Yeah, Puppet Master. So that was all. Yeah, that was their big game. All these like offshoot, and there were a lot of the B-rated movies were actually pretty good and stuff. But it was like you definitely was like, well, I would not go to the theater for this. But who cares?
It's still entertaining, yeah.
Right, it was still entertaining. It was it was very very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, Leprechaun. That's funny. Yeah, that's it's kind of a strange.
There was a funny article. It was very close to St. Patrick's Day. There was a teacher. It was like, oh, well, let these kids watch something theme related. Let me put this movie on Leprechaun. And then she left the room. It traumatized all the kids, because it's a horror flick and stuff. And it's all like, oh my gosh, she got fired anyway. But that was like, it's entertaining to see where people were like, oh, hey, what's this? There's a movie that's another B-rated movie like that that was called Jack Frost, which you would think it was just a Christmas movie. No, it was a killer Santa, snowman guy that would kill people and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, a lot of the B movies tend to be horror movies, but
yes.
Yeah. And then there's always the movies that take off. Yeah, they basically make a remake of a blockbuster. So like, I can't think of any like Independence Day, and then they'll make one. It'll be like Independent Days,
Right.
And then and then they'll show like a spaceship, and it's totally like I don't even know if it's at a B level. It's probably more like a C level. But yeah, there was a funny story of one of my employees. They thought they were seeing. Did you see that movie San Andreas with The Rock?
No, but I heard about it, and even though that went to theater, I almost felt like that was in the verge of that kind of, B-rated kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah, it was
Right.
okay. Nothing special. I mean, it wasn't horrible. wasn't terrific. But there was a knockoff on that one that somehow came out around the same time, and so at the time they're like, all right, they're gonna have movie night. It was a date night, and they're thinking that they're gonna watch San Andreas, and I think they did on like pay-per-view or something. That's what it was. It wasn't a DVD. It was like a pay-per-view thing. And then they started watching it. And they're like, this is not it. And then like they tell me the story, like they were so mad because they paid money for like this C-rated film that was like totally budget. And,
Oh man, they even had a new category. It's not even B. They were like, no, this is C.
it wasn't even B. I think I've seen it. I've seen that movie on one of the somewhere showing up, and like I saw like a trailer for it, and it's like, yeah, it's really, really bad.
Right. Yeah, that's well, I think that's where we're gonna have a plethora of the B's and C's, but I think they'll actually start getting good. Like, and going back to the AI, so a lot of people fixate on, the generative AI and stuff like that. Even synthesizing the movies would be generative, but it's like combining these other things, because like AI is like there's like 7 patterns of AI. One of them being the generative, there's goal driven systems, there's autonomous systems. But the one I think what they should combine with, and I think this is what we're going to see, is the thing called hyper personalization. Like when we were talking about the algorithms figuring out what we like. So imagine once the AI has not only what you scrolled on, data on from Target releasing data on what you purchased, what kind of job you have, your whole total history of what types of movies you've watched, things that you've been, maybe you're visiting the subreddit horror on Reddit and stuff like that. And then based off a movie, you could be like, oh, you know what? Which is one of the biggest barriers. I don't feel like looking for a movie for 45 minutes and spending 45 minutes just to find a movie because there's so many. I think the AI is basically going to be like, oh, I think you need an action romantic comedy,
Yeah, exactly.
and it'll be like, boom, it'll either select it or basically fabricate it for you.
Yeah.
It's
kind of on demand. Yeah.
Yeah, just like your
yeah.
your example. They're clearly looking for one type of movie and they didn't get it and they paid pay-per-view, basically got shammed. Now it's like, I think it'll just be like, nope, here it is, magic, exactly everything you wanted.
Yeah.
On there.
I want the next episode of James Bond. So, and boom, they're
right. Yeah, exactly. How good is James Bond if Bruce Lee was introduced into the mix?
There you go.
There's all kinds of even arguments with people. Like, they have these rating systems on villains and superheroes. And what if, this person's, I think all that can be basically on demand.
Yeah. Yeah. You want to talk about copyright infringement, but yeah, it's definitely possible.
Exactly. There will be no copyright in the future, at some point, we're only using our references now, but in the future, there'll be references that were probably generated by AI, Yeah, I think John Wick married up with He-Man would be very interesting mashup,
Or how about an Imperial Storm ship, chasing the Starship Enterprise,
Right, exactly. Yep.
Which one has the faster light speed?
Right. We've got sublight and light speed and hyper, and then we have warp 9. Okay, I don't know which
warp
one.
9. That's right.
Yeah, you've got Scotty in the back. She can't take it, Captain.
Yep, exactly.
So yeah, it's going to be very interesting.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, it is. I've seen some of the headway that they've made in automating some of that stuff that we're talking about in the studio space, and it's fascinating technology, and they are really putting tools together to just produce movies at a breakneck speed. So
Right.
how Hollywood's going to handle that, how that's all going to get into all the rights and unions and all that stuff will be a very, very fascinating story to watch.
Yeah, it's gonna be crazy.
Yep.
Cool. So what else we got? I think that was what I had was those news items. Did you want to do like a show and tell on anything else?
Yeah. Well, I know we're getting up here towards the end of the hour, but part of the call was kind of discussing how there's so many tool sets out there that can help solve small personal problems in your life or at your job or with anything else. So I can share a little tool that I developed, and this is for I sit on the board for a field hockey organization. It's a nonprofit, and they
Cool.
don't have a lot of money. Actually, have virtually no money, as most nonprofits do.
Right.
So and it's all run by volunteers, and it has the typical problems that you'd expect. Um, some people are technically savvy, others are not. Some people like email, some people like WhatsApp. So there's information in all kinds of different places, no coordination. So one of the things that I wanted to do was make a place where they could come in, they can do certain things, and it would keep the messaging on brand, and solve some simple problems that I always see occur every single day. So using some tools, let me share the screen with everybody. Give it a second here. Perfect. All right. So I created basically what I call the operations hub. And the operations hub is really just a set of tools that helps everybody find the things that are important, primarily based on the questions that they're getting. So like one of our main problems, we set up a nonprofit PayPal account. And if anybody has experience in PayPal, they know that like when you set up a business account, it doesn't operate like a personal account. So in a personal account, it's kind of like Venmo. So you can have, all right, just type in Brennan and you can send me a PayPal payment. But in a business account, it's a little bit different, and you have to set things up different. So you can't just type in our name and send us a payment. So there was always the question, well, how do people send us money? I need to collect money, and I found
Right.
myself just always generating a QR code, doing all this stuff. So this is very simple. You log into the operations hub, and then you click this button, and now you have the QR code to pay FHF. So
Oh,
that
very cool.
it just generates that dynamically based on our PayPal credentials and whatnot. So
And
it's
that
very
doesn't
simple.
expire.
What's
It's
that?
like it doesn't expire. It's persistent QR code.
This one right now it's just consistent, but the eventual goal will be to. Well, actually, no, I take that back. This one does not expire because this one is directly connected to the code that is generated from PayPal. So if I change it in PayPal, it'll change here.
Okay, cool. Because
Yeah.
that's what I did notice. A lot of companies that do the QR codes or all this other stuff. It's like you're paying a subscription to even use the darn thing,
Yep. Yep.
and then it goes away after a while. So you can't even use handouts, without being hooked into a subscription.
Yeah, and then it makes all your stuff basically obsolete. Um, so that's kind of kind of one very, very simple, easy to build. Another one was we have an issue where we need to send out letters to ask for donations, and everybody is kind of bounces it back and forth. Well, what's the address? What's the letterhead look like? What's the branding? How should I word it?
Right.
So I solved that problem. This one's kind of cool. So you can just click on this one and create donor letter. So you put in who you want to type it into. Let's just make it to myself, in California here, and then the subject here. Let's just say raise funds, and then you can basically generate the letter. And now this is connected to an AI engine that is basically absorbed all of the FHF information, and it knows how we want to present ourselves. And so now it pops up a letter here, a draft of a letter. So you can basically see subject, building the future of SoCal field hockey. Will you join us, Brennan? And then it says, Dear Brennan, and then it gives a little bit of history about SoCal field hockey, kind of a value statement and what we're looking for and what we're gonna do with the money. So it generates this all based on a knowledge set that I gave the AI agent. And now, if you want to, say I want to just delete this paragraph because I don't like it, I can do that. All right, now I'm good with the letter, and now I can say, let me just see how it looks like. Now it puts up here with our letterhead, our logo, the date, the letter. Now I didn't fix this in the text, but in the text I would have typed in my name, so it would have been official. And if I like that letter, now I just can print it and send it.
Nice.
And it has the option to download it. So it basically gives you all these options to basically generate and then modify the letter to how you like it. And then once it's all final and you'd read through it and yep, I like exactly how it looks, then you can either print it from here or download it.
Right, and if you download it puts it in a PDF or standard document format?
It generates a PDF for it, yep.
Nice.
Yep, so now that way, all of the donor letters are going to be on brand and consistent, and it pulls up information that people may not know, or if people were to think about creating a donor letter, 10 people drafting that letter are going to do it in 10 different ways. So this just adds consistency to our messaging, and again, very, very simple to do. This piece is basically connected to Google Gemini, and Gemini has been trained on FHF and basically knows how to construct that letter. And I gave it a general template. So these are all things that, no matter what your template looks like, what your brand is, you just kind of train it, and you can do stuff like this and, relatively easy. Then the next one is, people want to create social media posts. So again, another very simple one where, what do you want to post about? Let's see, I play. So Brennan just scored 3 goals. And then, I can add an image here, if I wanted to, but then you'd hit generate post. And then basically what it's going to do is it's going to give you a post idea that you can just basically copy and throw in. So here is the post. It says, so it's giving me some Instagram options, some Twitter options. And so, hat trick alert. Brennan was on fire today at Moore Park College, putting up 3 goals that to lead the way. And then since 1970, FHF has been the home of elite talent in SoCal. And Brennan is keeping that tradition alive. Join us in the comments to celebrate this epic performance.
Wow.
How awesome is that?
He even did the research. It was like, how long has this even been established?
Yeah. Because again, the whole model is trained on FHF. So everything is FHF branded. So like if one of our, let's try something else. Audrey just got committed to Stanford for field hockey. Sorry, my typing is faster than than I wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
So now you could just let's see what it does on that. So we have a lot of kids that are getting committed. So um, now it makes it really easy to share that information. So for Instagram, Facebook, big news from the turf. Huge congratulations to Audrey on her commitment to play D1 field hockey at Stanford University. We've watched Audrey grow through the FHF community, and we couldn't be more proud to see her take her talents to the farm. I guess the farm is what Stanford is called for their field hockey. Another incredible athlete, providing the Southern California is a powerhouse for the sport. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's very cool.
So that is how you create a social media post. And then, there was just some stuff like, I won't go through all of them, but this is general information like our address and things like the nonprofit information, because that is stuff that people are always asking for, always looking for. Important links is just things that take us to our Google Drives and things like that, so people can find things. But then these other two, I'll show you kind of an idea because they're both similar, but like the Idea Hub, I don't know if I have anything in here yet. The Idea Hub, I have a test in here. It's basically, one of the things is everybody has a lot of ideas, and they discuss them in the meetings and the board meetings and all these different places. And very few of them go anywhere because there's really no log. I mean, yeah, sure, you can go look and pull up the board notes and read through them, but that's kind of a pain. So I just made this really simple template where you can just add a new idea. This is a sample idea, but it's super simple. Your name, what your idea is, what the next step, and then this is proposed, and then it makes it, and then now they just sit it in here in a database that just keeps track of various ideas. And then if somebody does it, or we as a group have completed it, it's just very simple in here. I can mark this as completed, and it'll drop back down in here into the completed ideas. And then you always have the chance to edit it a little bit. So maybe we want to do this idea, but maybe not to the exact scope here. Or we completed it and we want to show what we did. So again, just a very, very simple idea tracker. Nothing too brilliant. No AI. But I think eventually, what I will do with something like this is build a layer of AI on top of it, and then look for things that AI agents could go build and solve automatically. So if somebody says, "Geez, I wish," when somebody asks about our league, about joining FHF, and they have a youth player, the board members are notified, and an email is responded to that person with a sign up link. And then eventually what I want is the AI agent to see that and to go, oh yeah, that can be done with 3 of the agents that we already have. And the agents already have access to our Gmail. So you go create that email, build the agent that does that. And now it just monitors our email. And when it sees somebody that, hey, I have a youth player who wants to join, it would send out an email. How old is your player? Oh, our player is 12 years old, never played before. Great. Here's the practice times. Here's the sign up link. Here's the coach names. So that's my future iteration of this, but this is just, kind of version 1. So anyways, this is very easy to build in today's tool set. So there's tools like Lovable, which can do this really relatively simple, but to get it functional and to make it work, it is $25 a month. But if you don't want to pay for something, Google AI Studio, this can all be done. Actually, parts of this is done in Google AI Studio. With a Google account, it's pretty much free. As you start to use more and more AI, it will start to cost money, but like if it's just trivial tasks, even if you just fed it $10 to do like everything, all the AI that I've done in here, that $10 would probably last us a couple years. Because it's so I'm not having to do any major complex. Now, if you have something where it's multiple agents, it's going in, it's scraping a database, it's pulling in information, kind of like what some of the modern CRMs do and things like that, then yeah, you're going to start blowing through AI credits and it's going to cost a little bit more money. But for the general thing, you want something to look for an email, send a response, and basically have it automated. That's not going to cost that much money. You can build the logic and the agent in something like Gemini or Google AI Studio, and then you can build the hooks in something like Zapier or Make.com or N8N. Any of those will do, and as long as you're doing only one or two, you can get away with the free plan. The minute that you start stepping into multiple agents doing complex things, yeah, you're going to have to start eventually paying for them. But you could do quite a bit of automation pretty much for free. So that's just something I did for the league that is going to help operations.
Yeah, this is fantastic. And then I think I might have to try to borrow some of this even for the my kids rowing, because it's like you said, I'm already getting messages about, oh, we need to find a sponsor, to sponsor and get some money, and next thing asking for donations. It's like, yeah, if we could automate those tasks, it's easier to delegate a lot of this stuff out to other folks to say, oh, here, take these and either stamp them or physically deliver them with a conversation.
Yep. And I think, part of the problem, just like in these smaller organizations like this, where it's volunteers, it sounds easy enough. Yeah, we just need to write a letter and send it, and send it to the local businesses. But right. There's a lot of steps that people kind of forget about. Hey, what do you want to say in that letter? What is our nonprofit organization name? What is, where do they send the money to? How do they get in touch with us? And as volunteers, a lot of people don't have all that information. So what results is that the letter never gets sent. So, yeah. And so if you get rid of all that stuff, people, I find that people are more than willing to go and drop letters off. Even if you give them an idea and then it generates the letter, they're more than happy to put in ideas, generate the letters, print them, and go deliver them. It's that stuff that they get stuck on, that, oh, I don't know what the nonprofit address is. I don't know what the phone number is. Right. And then it just comes to a grinding halt. So that's all this is, hoping to solve.
Yeah. Well, if you can get rid of that administrative overload, that could basically get everybody else to help with it, I think that's a win, because volunteer activities are like the hardest, to organize, because you got people that you're buying for their free time, and then B, like you said, they don't know what half the data is, and it's going to take an arm and a leg to go and figure it out, make a phone call. And if you can provide, essentially make the process frictionless, I think that's fantastic.
Yeah. So so certainly if you need any of this logic, I can definitely share it with you.
Yeah, that would be cool. Good.
Maybe that's our simple product. It's the nonprofit operations hub, and we'll sell it for $5 a month or something.
Yeah, just enough.
Enough to cover the expenses on it. So.
Right. Yeah, get it off and then help all these communities out.
Yeah. Yep. Certainly.
Good. This is good stuff, Brendan.
Yeah. So maybe I know that in one of these future installments of the AI Coffee Brief, we would actually like to go and build one of these apps. So maybe in the next few ones coming up, we can plan on building something that would make a lot of people's lives easier. So, finding a problem that everybody has, like, auto responding to emails or putting stuff in a calendar. But, maybe you and I can figure out something, and then we could just build it from scratch and show people how, truly how easy it is to kind of do that first level. Once you start doing larger integrations and a lot of call back and forth and a lot of AI agents, it starts getting more complicated. But basically what I showed you in this is all relatively simple.
I think the big one that I think would impact a lot of people the most is probably the auto responding to emails. Because I've got several emails and they're divided by the type of activities, like I have one just for bills and stuff like that. But I have other ones that basically potential clients will email and stuff like that.
Yep.
And I think the simple auto response that isn't static, I think that would help a lot of people out quite a bit. And then especially with the G Suite, having the integration now with Gemini in there,
Yeah.
you know, I think that would be really kind of interesting to show people what to do.
Yeah. So maybe there's a first level that we could kind of build out on something
Hmm.
like that. When you start getting into the complexities of how you triage all your different stuff that comes in, it becomes pretty pretty complex. But maybe it's something as simple as like, hey, look for this one type of message, or maybe it's maybe it's a message from your bank. Anytime you see a message from my bank, send me a notice.
Right.
It could be something simple like that. It doesn't have to be from the bank, but I'm just trying to think of of a clear example. But I think on that first level, we can definitely build something on the fly that goes in and looks for one or two signals, and then uses AI to draft a response to whatever. First it finds that signal, and then it reads it to see what is required, and then the AI could then draft whatever that is and then actually send it out. So I think if you keep it to kind of a single thread, that is something we could probably demonstrate pretty easily.
Yeah. Very cool. Good.
Yeah.
All right. We'll put that on our list, and then
Okay.
maybe we push something out that says, kind of almost surveys folks that say, what's something that's like a pain point for you,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
basically go through that.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything like creating social media posts or creating letters, that stuff is all really easy. Because that's just kind of an input form and then and a knowledge base. So that type of stuff is super easy. Um, and it's not as exciting, but I guess it is exciting if you're the person that has to write 20 letters a week and sits
Yeah,
there
exactly.
and scratches your head every time. Oh, I got to write another letter and I got to get all this information. So
Right. Yeah. Well, we're
um,
going to put that on the list then. This will be good.
yeah, that'll be great, and we can build some of these things in real time just to show people how easy it is, and basically get people on board with building some things to kind of make their lives easier, because it truly is a unique time right now.
Yeah. Cool.
All right.
All
Well,
right.
this
Well,
was a good discussion today.
yeah, this was good. We'll chat again, and then
Okay.
we'll work on that automation.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. Cool.
All right. I'll
Take
see you
care.
later. Bye. Thank you, everybody.